Hello, Galaxy. I'm Chris Pirillo, and I have both the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which I've had for the past year, and the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which I've had for the past not even week. And I've used both, certainly, or at least long enough to let you know what I think of whether or not it's warranted to upgrade from a 13 Pro Max or even an iPhone 13 to a 14 Pro Max or an iPhone 14 Pro. Because there's definitely a difference between the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 Pro series, namely the Dynamic Island. I'll get to that in a second. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, it's a small upgrades, it's not worth it, I'll wait. I don't know if I believe that. And I've, of course, read the marketing material just like you have, and I haven't really watched a lot of videos, but I've definitely got the hands-on experience right here. I've got the cases on, right? The Apple case here and the mouse case on this device, if only so that I can tell them apart in my hands. Because otherwise it's like, wait, which one is which? And you have to wait for the screen to turn off because of the always-on display. That is the first thing I want to tell you. That is a big change between pretty much every previous iPhone and the iPhone 14 Pro, or Pro Max specifically. I'm talking for the remainder of this video, it's pretty much going to be a Pro Max comparison, but you can, extrapolate from there. Don't dismiss the always-on display. Don't. And I know some people, the battery life. I'm like, yeah, but I've lived with always-on displays for years on Android. And once you have an always-on display, it's kind of hard when you go without. You can't. And I feel Apple did a great job with the always-on display experience, minus maybe a few issues that I've run into, like specifically thinking, oh, the screen was unlocked, but it wasn't, and then I try to tap to wake it up, and it doesn't. It could be that I was tapping it wrong, I don't know. But the always-on display in general is a boon. I love that it has finally arrived on iOS. Don't dismiss it. If you're on an earlier iPhone, certainly the 13 Pro Max, for that feature alone, it's absolutely worth the upgrade. Because once you have it, you can't live without it. It's kind of like ProMotion. Like once you have it, like with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, once you have it, you can't live without it. You can't go backwards. You can't step backwards into 60 frames per second land. It's not so much fun there as the roller coaster ride of the ProMotion display on the current Pros coming out of the iPhone camp. And in terms of speed, now I know on paper, it's got a different chip and whatnot. And, it's fast. Clearly, the benchmark says it's faster. You don't feel it. You really don't. Now maybe you're the type of person who does, but like I'm telling you, like day-to-day operation, and it could very well be that the software really hasn't been. I haven't felt a speed improvement in the software for a number of years, and that does not mean that things don't load a little faster or things don't happen a little quicker at all. But do you notice it? Did I notice it? Absolutely not. Not once. Not once. And more often than not, I gotta wait for an animation to finish. So it doesn't matter how fast the processor is, I still gotta wait for the animation to finish. So speed, don't upgrade for the speed. Don't. That's not warranted. Screen brightness. This surprised me, especially when I was doing, photo tests outside. In the bright sun here in Seattle. I've got a video that I'll be working on comparing the photo output of the iPhone 14 Pro Max against the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. I'm debating whether or not to do a camera comparison test between the 13 Pro Max and the 14. But the screen is what jumped out at me, especially in stark contrast to the Samsung screen, which I thought was pretty bright. It gets brighter in bright light, but not as bright, seemingly, to my eyes, as the 14 Pro Max. So the brightness, awesome. You think, oh, not a big deal. No. This is the kind of feature that you don't realize you need until you need it. So the screen brightness is an absolute win in my book, would warrant the upgrade, especially if you leave the house and you live in a part of the world where the sun shines sometimes. Even in Seattle, the sun shines. So jumping to the camera, right? At first, I didn't think it was that big of a difference. And honestly, it doesn't feel like it was a big difference. I was not impressed at all with the iPhone 13 Pro Max camera. And I'm definitely still not impressed with the iPhone 14 Pro Max camera. I would say that by and large, the iPhone 14 Pro Max camera took sharper shots in lower light than the iPhone 13 Pro Max did. Slightly sharper. That was more impressive to see, for sure. But in some ways, it seems to have taken steps backwards. I would take the same shot, and the iPhone 14 Pro Max would blow out more white areas or bright areas than the iPhone 13 Pro Max did. And that just doesn't make any sense to me, apart from Apple still hasn't tweaked its algorithm. Unfortunately, though, they both suffer from like over-processing, the really kind of crunchy details. Everything's harsh. Everything's very super contrasty or sharpened to the point where it's just a lot of the photos just don't look good if you start to pixel peep or go, deeper than just like a regular shot that you might be looking at on Twitter or any one of your social feeds. So the camera, for the marginal improvements in low light scenarios, would be worth the upgrade, because that's the shot that you can only take once. Diana just took my family and Jedi to a local farm where they have rides and horses and all that. She was taking pictures, and I couldn't figure out, why are your picture resolution? She's got a pixel. Why is it so low? There was a setting that wasn't toggled in her camera to the highest setting. I don't know how it got toggled, but she was taking like 5 megapixel images. I'm like, this is just like, and they were fine. They were serviceable. And she was getting video for the vlog and everything. But it was like, oh, Diana, you need to toggle this back. She can't do that. Again, she can't, she can toggle it, but she can't go back and have that experience again. So you always want as high a quality image as you possibly can. So as far as the difference between these two, yeah, the camera, for those pulling out those details, by and large, the upgrade is warranted, though. Like I said, I felt in some scenarios the iPhone 13 camera did a little better. Future-proofing and safety, yes, it's a version higher, but the safety features, right? The satellite connectivity, the car crash detection, that's, again, something that you don't realize you need, the car crash detection specifically, until you need it. That's a win. It was a win for the Pixel devices, for the people that used the Pixel devices when they rolled that out years ago. And I think it's as big a win for iPhone users. And I think that, again, helps make the upgrade warranted, especially if you're not just eliminating this device or holding on to this device. Sell the device, get top dollar for the device, or try to, right? Don't just throw it to the wayside. That's what I'm doing, basically, is I sell this old one because I'm not gonna use it past this next week, just to always have the latest. I don't want to hold on to hardware. I'm not into that. You might be, but I'm just telling you. That also helped justify the upgrade, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm spending this much money, but I'm getting this much back. And I'm able to do this, but I'm not able to do this. So in terms of what am I not able to do on the iPhone 13 Pro Max? I guess get annoyed by the notch. That's a win. So I'm going to lead there. The Dynamic Island. I didn't even realize some of the apps. Sorry, I've got an itch on my nose. Someone's thinking about me. You are. Thank you for turning on the notifications and commenting and telling me what you think. I've found that in certain moments, like a call or a gesture, or not Siri, though. Siri inexplicably is not tied to the Dynamic Island. That makes no sense at all. Like, it's again where Apple's user experience just feels like feature piled on top of feature piled on top of feature, and it's all mystery meat. That's one example. Siri should not be at the bottom of the screen anymore. It should be a part of the Dynamic Island, and maybe they'll roll out an update to have that, or maybe it'll be a tentpole feature of the new version of iOS a year from now. But like, I got a call come in. I'm like, whoa, cool. I had something else. What was the app? But music. Music was playing, and it popped up there. And I didn't realize the app was already compatible, but it was. So it had that compatibility already, and it kind of surprised me to see that. So I was very happy. Battery life, I would say, is a wash. I'm not a power user as far as iPhone daily driving usage is concerned, but I was able to leave it out even with the always on display and use it for photos and video and testing and all that. And I woke up the next morning without plugging it in or charging it. It was at 58%. That's impressive. So if you're going to use the device, charge it. Figure out your cycle. Do you get more battery life? I guess. But, to me, the battery life is not, that's not the reason why you would upgrade from a 13 Pro Max to a 14 Pro Max. The eSIM. So I want to talk about this. Apple made a massive mistake. They did not include an eSIM ejector tool in the box. So there is no way you can eject your eSIM at all. That's just know that. Just know that you can't. eSIM for the future, yeah. Today, it's a little. I'm feeling that pinch like we felt with the removal of the headphone jack, right? You had all these legacy devices, and quite honestly, we still have these legacy devices with the headphone jack. We're never gonna get rid of it entirely. Like, it's. I'm not saying it's horrible that the headphone jack disappeared, but it created that many more problems. And I feel the same thing for different reasons is happening or will happen with the eSIM. And that's largely because the operations are contingent on carriers, third parties that haven't necessarily done an amazing job from day one with what they're doing now with your accounts. I don't know what you use. I know you use something, but when you got to interact with a human being, that's usually where things fall apart. It's just too new. It's too new, and there's not broad enough support. A year from now, maybe eSIM. So that would actually be a detraction. That would actually be something that would be a pain point enough to have me reconsider upgrading from a 13 Pro Max to a 14 Pro Max. But, once you have it, set up, once you've got it going, it's not a big deal. It's a potential small hurdle to overcome. It's a caveat that I have to bring up. Another thing that it's not really a caveat, but it's always something that I looked forward to with iOS, pre-iOS 7. Before iOS 7, every iPhone that they released, iOS got more fluid, iOS got better, iOS got faster. That stopped happening right around iOS 7. It felt it just didn't feel like we felt those speed bumps as much. We hit speed bumps. So I wanted to say that if you're expecting that the display, or apart from the brightness, right? The display, though, helping with animation or fluidity or jank or judder or the general iOS problems, like I documented in the live video from this weekend on YouTube. And thank you for tuning in for that. I'm hoping to do live videos every weekend doing Q&A with y'all. I showed you the jank that happened on the new iPhone, but it could have happened easily on the old one as well. It's an iOS bug. So don't expect that all your iOS issues are going to disappear. That is not the reason to upgrade. But, as I was writing down this assessment, I realized, yeah, these are small changes, but these are important changes to note that I believe make the upgrade from a 13 Pro Max to a 14 Pro Max warranted. I absolutely think it is worth the upgrade.